The most important thing that's happening in relation to pensions is not something that was announced in today's budget. It's something that was announced about a year ago, actually in summer of last year, and that's a limitation on the amount that high earners can contribute to their pension scheme. So, for example, someone who's earning over $210,000 will only be able to contribute £10,000 on a tax relief basis each year. And what that means for employers is that they have to give some consideration, careful thought, about what they can do to fill that gap for their senior executives. One thing that employers might want to consider is using ISAs. So it might not be appropriate to use one of the new lifetime ISAs for senior executives because they're likely to be over 40, and 40 is the age limit as of next year when you can use those. The old ISAs, traditional ISAs, the limit's been increased to 20,000, so you could use those as a kind of employer-sponsored savings arrangement. But there are also all kinds of share plans that have tax advantageous rules that could be used. And these are only enhanced because of the increased margin between capital gains rates and income tax rates. The capital gains tax rate in today's budget was reduced to 20% for higher earners. This means that employee share plan arrangements will become even more popular than they are now. The margin between income tax and capital gains tax is larger. And in relation to most of these plans, the intention is to move from income to capital. And that also means for employers that they're paying less. So for employees, the difference is between 45% for higher earners and 20% for capital gains tax. But for employers as well, they're not paying national insurance contributions, which would ordinarily be payable at 13.8%. So it really encourages the use of things like SIP, SAYE, EMI, the government-sponsored arrangements, but also other arrangements that employers might put in place, like restricted stock plans, growth share plans. A whole variety of things are available. Chancellor announced today that employee shareholder status is going to have its tax benefits reduced. And the way this will work is that there'll be a lifetime limit imposed on the exemption for capital gains. This is a 100,000 lifetime limit. And the difference that this makes is that previously there was no limit on the amount of gains that you could make that would be exempt from tax. There was a limit originally, or there is a limit now, on the value of the shares that you can acquire. So the value at the time that you acquire them is limited to 50,000. That amount of shares would be exempt from capital gains, but now there's a limit on the way out. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of this change is the political aspect. And this was introduced, this scheme, by the Conservatives during the coalition in the face of a bit of opposition by the Lib Dems. It has been really used mainly in the private equity context, and that probably wasn't the original intention. So it could be seen, this change, as a way of withdrawing the scheme, perhaps bit by bit over time, while saving a bit of political face.